Hey, what's up? It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. Trying to kill some time because this has been a very slow shift for your boy. But nevertheless, I'm right here trying to earn my little pennies and doing what I can to make sure that I stay as consistent with you guys too. So, yeah, this is a video. I want to talk about Myles Leonard's anti Semitic comments and the fallout as and have at least gotten a little information on that. Not a whole lot in terms of how long he's going to be suspended, if there's a suspension at all. Fines, I'm sure, are looming. How much, I don't know that yet. But I guess he was playing a video game and was talking to somebody in the video game, and he told the person that he was speaking to, don't snipe him, and he used the K word, anti-Semitic K word. I won't be repeating it here. But that's what he chose to say, and he released a statement today and said that he didn't know what it meant, but he knows now. He's become a person who's understanding these things. He's going to go on this journey to learn, the whole PR thing. You say what you must say after this kind of thing. So that's what was said. I think the Heat came out and also released a statement in regards to that. I think the reality that we're living in, all of us, everybody, is that this is a very sensitive era. But because it's very sensitive and it's still fairly fresh to be this sensitive, we haven't found a balance between how to absorb a joke, how to find a threshold for where we're satisfied. I think those are things that haven't been established. People are still canceling everybody for what they deem is offensive, and then there's really no balance or rhyme or reason to it at this point. It's just he said some stuff we're getting rid of. I think as this era evolves and as we evolve in how we're reviewing this, we will come to an understanding of how we want to go about these type of situations a bit more realistically. Did this guy say something? Yes. Does he have a history of saying this kind of stuff? Probably not. And I'm not using this example for him specifically. I'm just saying how it goes in my head in terms of trying to assess it in the future when we do find that balance. That's what you're seeing here. Did he say something he shouldn't have said? Yes. Does he have a history of this behavior? No. Is this something that we can get past the group that he offended? How are they reacting to this? Those are the type of things that I don't think we're asking a whole lot of questions on. Oh, he said it, the end. Oh, he did that, he's out. Like those type of things. And then we want to erase people from history. It's altogether forgetting all about their art or whatever it is that they're good at, that made us know them in the first place. And it's just like there's no balance there. There's no level playing field for that situation, for that type of thing. And it's tough. It's very tough. I would imagine for someone who is not ethnic or Caucasian to have to balance that out with everyone's irate idea about how things go with your race and how people are supposed to feel when they're white, and addressing people who are non-white. It can get a bit crazy. It's a word I'll use. It can get crazy. And as an African American person, I find myself having a little more leeway, I think, to say at least certain words addressing my own people, and even in some cases things that I may be able to get away with that maybe a Caucasian person may not be able to get away with saying, just because of the stereotypes and the histories that everyone is focused on when considering these things. So it can get rough. I've been one who's in the past said, man, it would be a great world if everybody could just stand on their own merits rather than have the stereotypes and history books and all different things try to make us feel a certain way about how we should look at ourselves when we say certain things, or how the society should look at us when we open our mouths to say certain things. It's like and it's like and another thing is, like, you got to understand, when people are bullied or feel like they've been pushed aside in whatever way, shape, or form, there's going to be a lack of balance when assessing the next person that bullies us. It's that kind of thing. Like, the next person that gets us, we're gonna make an example of them. And we see too many different situations like that where a guy may be accused of something and then you get rid of him. Why? Because you've seen so many situations where guys did that same thing and nothing happened, or that kind of a formula. You can see that a lot. It was like a pressure cooker. Like anytime something's just been pressured and held back for so long, when it finally does bust through, it busts through with all kinds of velocity rather than it just being a balanced, free-flowing type of thing. And then it's like urgency beyond what should be, just because of that pressure and that being held back. So, we gotta both give credence to those who are affected by what it is that we say, as well as to credence to the idea that we haven't quite reached a space where people are ready to be fair, or balanced in regards to assessing people who say things that are offensive. I don't think Myles Leonard's, after hearing what he had to say, after reading his comments, I don't think we cancel Myles Leonard. He's not going to be fired from the Heat or nothing like that. This is a learning experience for a young player, and that's as far as I'll take it. A lot of people have brought up Montrezl Harrell's comments versus Luka in this situation and trying to find some consistency there. In most cases, I get a little cringy when I hear stuff like that, particularly as an African-American person, because I am of the mindset that the balance of scales don't exist between the two, if I'm being completely honest. But at the same time, even in trying to assess the fact that there is no balance on those scales, we still have to be realistic in how we address what it is that we're dealing with. In other words, just because 400 years of things have happened to where a black person like myself can say, yo, I want a little more rope than the white guy gets because my people didn't do that to his people, etc. If that's the running statement, we have to define what fairness actually is, and then make damn sure that we're consistent in what it is that we're asking for versus what it is that we do. And a lot of times, the history of things will make it so that we give ourselves passes, and that leaves a whole lot of room for a lot of conflict that isn't necessary. When you have balance and when you try to do what it is that you ask others to do, there's not a whole lot of room for others to complain about what it is you're asking them to do, because you're not telling them to do something that you wouldn't be willing to do. But in cases like this, particularly when it comes to social settings and words that are being said, you have one group who's allowed to say the word and a bunch of other groups who aren't allowed to say that word, or one group who's going to get passes for maybe being able to do certain things, but another person from a representative group will not. That kind of stuff just breeds more resentment. It breeds more issues. It breeds more stuff that brings about all the bad stuff that this stuff ultimately is based upon anyway. You get a whole lot more resentment. So I think I would just like to see us all get to a point where we're not neglecting mental health, but that we're also not reacting to things that are not supposed to be maliciously intended. When we get to a point where we can look at an intention of what is being said, and the spirit of what's being said, and the merit of the person who may have said what they said, then we can start assessing how far to take these cancellations, how far to take punishing somebody for being offensive. I think there's levels and there's balance, and when we pass those levels, when we stop seeking balance, we find ourselves in trouble, basically. So that's the long and the short of my opinion in regards to this particular situation, and a billion others that this formula would probably fit for. When I looked at Trez's situation, he said what he said, I kind of cringed because I felt like two things I didn't like about that situation. One, I didn't like how Trez gave individuals so much room to look at him and say, yo, he's racist, he's bigoted, this person doesn't like people who don't look like him, this person is not going to be respectful of professionals who don't look like him. That's not the type of connotation you want to have as a black person, or any person for that matter. But I don't believe a black person should ever allow themselves to be seen in that light when we're fighting against so much, for so much, have so much being spoken of in regards to ourselves, especially now in this era with Black Lives Matter. It's like we have a responsibility at this point to kind of be cognizant of the fact that, yes, we are the focal point of a lot of stuff that goes on socially. So we should be the golden standard for how we want the rest of the world to treat us. We should be treating them that way too. And I don't think a lot of us really have those thoughts. A lot of us and some of us are more so interested in what we can receive for being punished rather than being the gold standard for how to treat others and how to take the initiative and being the bigger person, so to speak, in certain situations. I just would love to see us reach that space as African American and people of color. Waiting for others to show compassion. I think we've found that we're not going to find compassion in certain places. And looking for compassion and then using it as the gold standard for whether or not you're willing to show it, it doesn't work. You're not going to receive it. You're not going to deserve it. And that's a big deal. So I, as a person of color, I try to acknowledge things that don't have anything to do with me. I pray about things that don't have anything to do with my people, as well as things that have to do with my people. And I'm hopeful that love can bleed through, in that regard, even though we are kind of ignorant in regards to how we deal with one another. Some of us have never been around a lot of different people, so we don't have but stereotypes and hearsay to work with. But that's where I believe faith comes in. If you believe in a living God, if you believe in a religion or whatever, then your heart should be governed by love, I believe, not governed by contingencies on whether or not I'm receiving love in order to show it. You have to take that initiative. Be the better person in the mirror first. Then when you leave the house and go out into to whatever the world brings you, you have established that you are the good that you want to see outside. You have established that such a thing can exist because it exists in you. And that's a big part of being able to receive good energy. That's a big part of being able to receive respect. When you first establish that respect for yourself. And so that's what I think has to happen for all of us, including Myles Leonard. You got to look in the mirror and ask yourself, now that you understand this, now that this is out there, now that people are going to continually correlate your name with being anti-Semitic, now you have to carry the burden of that. Now you have to answer questions about it a lot. Maybe you'll have to answer questions about it 5, 6, 10 years from now. And that's just something you have to hold for the rest of your life. When you're a famous person, you say stuff like this. Luckily for him, and I say luckily reluctantly, but it is just a fact, and I think most people agree with this. Luckily for him, he didn't say the N-word, okay? Because we know that if he were to say that, this would be a different situation. And for me personally, sure, I'm very offended when I hear it come out of people's mouths that aren't black, but at the same time, I do understand that a lot of times, just because a person says a word doesn't necessarily mean it represents what's going on in their heart. Doesn't mean that their heart can't change or their minds can't change about whatever. And just because a person is very careful not to utter certain words does not mean that they think great of whoever it is that they're careful not to offend. If anything, it just shows that a person can make themselves look a certain way while feeling however they do. So the long and the short of it is, I think we can all evolve to a place where we are assessing that properly as well, and not allowing, once again, history and wrongdoings that will never be balanced, things that can never be just balanced on all scales, determine whether or not we're going to be fair to one another. We have to live with one another. I think that's what I want to say in this video. No matter what's been done by our forefathers and our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers and all this stuff, at the end of the day, we got to live with each other. So if a reparations check is going to make my people start to assess things properly, then maybe that's something y'all should be cutting. If it's not, I understand the importance of rectifying this old behavior anyway. However, best to do so. I support reparations. I think it would be a good thing for the economy, all of that good stuff. I think it's not harmful. I don't think it's going to put people in a position to quit their jobs or have black people sitting on a hill while everybody else is poor. I don't think that actually takes place. I think it's actually good for the economy. But at the same time, I do understand why some would say, you know what? How do you assess what a black person is? How do you assess how black a person is? One drop rule, do they get their check too? That kind of stuff can get complicated and basically impossible to assess. But I think seeking some type of solution for the historical harm done can go a long way in helping solve some of these issues that I've described in this video, in terms of how my people particularly assess others when feeling offended, when feeling like an injustice has taken place, when feeling a lot of hatred and racism toward them. I think the thing that we as Americans need to understand is when something like that is put in place and people identify as either being victims or identify as being outcasted, when that happens, it becomes very difficult for us to objectively define singular individuals on the other side. You understand what I'm saying? Define their heart in regards to us, define what their intentions are when they slip up and say the wrong word. It's hard for us in a clear space to say, we can look at this person and say, they're one of the good guys. There is a huge facet of my people that cannot do that because reparations haven't been paid, because they don't feel like justice has been served for 400 years of what has taken place. And I think when you solve, or rather address that issue across the board for everyone to see, you make an example to understand that you must condemn the actions of your forefathers. Once you do that, then you disarm those who won't look at you objectively. Then you can sway the minds of those who are sitting here saying there are no good white folks out there. Then you can put those people in a space where now free thinkers are looking at them wondering what their agenda is, rather than just nodding and saying, yep, because they ain't said sorry for what they did for 400 years. See, that kind of stuff, I'm telling you, the biggest argument we have for being able to say the N-word and not allowing others to say the N-word is essentially that very thing. The bottom line is you have not made that right. And making that right will go a long way in disarming us in that regard. And I think that's ultimately what we want to reach. And I think all this ties in because being canceled, the whole thing that Myles Leonard is experiencing right now and putting himself out there to apologize for saying something in a freaking video game to somebody he didn't even know who they look like or what they look like or where they're from. Objectively speaking, I could say this is hogwash. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's essentially what I want everybody to be able to get to. Not necessarily say this is hogwash, but this is say, you know what? Myles said some bull crap. Shame on you, Myles, and move on. Rather than come out with all this, oh my God, it's the end of the world. He said something about this person's group. Now it's just he has to be canceled. Oh, what do we do with him from here? He's a part of the problem. It's like, no. And then you got people on the other side saying, yo, if he were black, this wouldn't happen. What about Trez? Like all that stuff it's justifiable because of the fact that certain things have not been settled. And when you have the root of the cancel culture ultimately comes from the civil rights energy in various movements, civil rights movements. It's like people have seen those things take a life of its own, and changes come from that. And now it's like, well, I have a problem too. I got bullied by those people over there. How about we cancel them too? Since you can cancel the Caucasian people who are racist, you can also cancel those guys. And then people in different groups suddenly see that energy and they want it specific for what it is that they're talking about. And now you have cancel culture. I think it all stems from the black plight and the fight against racism in this country. I think it all stems from that. So if we can fix the root, the base root of what cancel culture is, you can start to find opportunities to find balance even when there is none. Opportunities to find peace when there's no way to rectify the problem really, other than just pay some dollars out and say a couple sorries. And that's really what it's about. Look, this video is going on forever, but I had a whole lot to say, because this situation is just, at the end of the day, Myles is a white guy, you know, and that because he is Caucasian, he's going to have to take on a lot of fire for saying anything racist or anything that comes off racist. And while there are some racist people out there who deserve to have punishment, there's also some guys out there, maybe Myles is one of those guys, who just said some stuff in the heat of a moment playing a video game. I mean, look, if you really want to, you put a camera on any human being for their whole life, you can point out one or two things that they do flagrantly. You could point out one or two situations, or even more, where they might have messed up. You know, it's part of being human. So you remove all of this history, you remove all the resentment, you remove all the notions of people being bullied, and you just look at this situation as an isolated incident. You say, oh, man, he cussed. He said some words he shouldn't have said. You know, maybe there was some kids on there. You know, probably shouldn't have said that stuff, bro. Shame on you. Find him, the end. It should not be all of this. So that's really what the video ultimately is for me. That's what this is about. Just understanding that the world we're in, the environment we're in, doesn't allow for human beings to be looked at in isolated ways, to which their merit should. You understand what I'm saying? That's the key. He should be looked at as not a white guy who said some shit, but as a guy who said some shit. You understand what I'm saying? And how do we get there? That's ultimately what this video was about. Thank you guys for watching. My name is BDF44. I hope I didn't take you too far down the rabbit hole. My brain jumps around, as you know. But my intention is to get to a point where not only am I feeling like I'm not being offended by people who hate me, but also those who don't hate me aren't grouped in with the people who do hate me just because they say something that maybe they might should not have said. So that's what I got for you guys. My name is BDF44, and that's it. I'm out.